In every era of human history, from kingdoms carved in stone to modern cities glowing with screens, one truth has never changed. A man's value is determined not by how loudly he declares it, but by how silently he carries it. And yet, in today's world, men have forgotten this truth. They chase, they prove, they beg, they over-explain, all in the desperate hope of earning respect that should have been theirs from the start. The first and greatest boundary a man must establish is the boundary of self-worth. It is the foundation of every form of power, the root of all respect, and the one thing a woman instinctively searches for the moment she meets you. Imagine a throne. Imagine a crown, and imagine a king walking into a room and asking his subjects whether he deserves to wear it. The moment he asks, he loses it. The moment he looks for permission, he forfeits authority. This is exactly what happens when a man looks to a woman for reassurance, validation, or approval. A woman's respect begins to erode the instant she realizes that you need her opinion to feel secure in yourself. You cannot negotiate your worth because worth is not a negotiation. It is a declaration, expressed not through words, but through presence. Women are wired to test your sense of value, not maliciously, not because they want to destroy you, but because they want to see whether you are a man who knows himself or a man easily shaped by others. These tests appear subtly at first, a small joke at your expense, a moment of coldness, a delayed reply, a sudden shift in tone. She watches how you respond, how quickly you bend, how fast your confidence fractures. When a man responds by chasing, apologizing, explaining, or pleasing, she sees it instantly. He doubts himself, and if he doubts himself, she must doubt him too. Self-worth is not arrogance. It is not loudness. It is not swagger or pretending. It is the quiet power of a man who has decided that he is enough before anyone else decides it for him. When she pulls away, you remain calm. When she questions your intentions, you speak with certainty. When she tests your patience, you do not crumble into emotional chaos. When she withdraws affection, you do not panic, for you understand that your value does not shrink because someone temporarily stops recognizing it. A man with self-worth does not chase unpredictably. He does not beg for clarity. He does not compete for attention. He does not overthink silence. He does not interpret her distance as a call to fight harder for her approval. Instead, he interprets it as a mirror reflecting her uncertainty, not his. He gives her space without anxiety. He gives her time without fear. He gives himself priority without guilt. Such a man becomes magnetic, not because he tries to be, but because his sense of value radiates from the inside out. Women can feel this energy. They sense it in your tone, your posture, your decisions, your boundaries, your ability to walk away from anything that threatens your peace. Machiavelli taught rulers that the greatest power is the ability to remain unmoved by the expectations or emotions of others. And this philosophy applies even more deeply in relationships. When a woman realizes she cannot shake your confidence, when she sees that your value is not influenced by her approval or disapproval, she reacts in a very specific way. She leans in. She invests more. She pays attention. She respects you. But this kind of man is rare in a world filled with men who crumble under the slightest emotional pressure. Self-worth also means eliminating the language of insecurity. You stop asking questions like, do you still like me? Or are you mad at me? Or did I do something wrong? These phrases do not express love. They express fear. And fear has never been attractive. Instead, you speak like a man who knows that he brings value into every interaction. You speak from strength, from calmness, from certainty. You do not fear losing her, because you do not fear being alone. You do not fear silence, because your mind is not at war with itself. You do not fear rejection, because rejection cannot touch a man who already accepts himself. A man with high self-worth also protects his time, energy, and emotional space. He does not sacrifice himself to gain affection. He does not abandon his goals to impress someone. He does not soften his principles to avoid conflict. He does not mold himself to fit into a woman's expectations. Instead, he stands firm in who he is and allows the world to adjust around him. If a woman aligns with his values, he welcomes her. If she doesn't, he does not cling. He simply continues forward, understanding that losing the wrong person is a gain, not a loss. In Machiavellian terms, self-worth is your internal kingdom. If your inner kingdom is weak, every external relationship collapses. If your inner kingdom is strong, every external relationship aligns. Women do not respect perfection. They respect emotional fortitude. They respect the man who has a core that cannot be shaken by beauty, silence, disapproval, or temptation. They respect the man who does not measure himself against other men or against her standards, but against his own. The boundary of self-worth is not something you speak. It is something you embody. It is the way you move, the way you respond, the way you detach from disrespect, the way you maintain your identity even when she tests you. It is the power of a man who knows that he is the prize, not because he says it, but because everything about him proves it. There is a battlefield far more dangerous than any kingdom Machiavelli ever observed. A battlefield where wars are fought silently, invisibly, and with no swords at all, the battlefield of emotions. And the man who cannot master this territory will lose power before he even realizes the war has begun. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings, it is about becoming the commander of them. It is about knowing when to speak, when to remain silent, when to react, and when to hold your ground with unshakable calm. And in relationships, especially with women, this mastery is the single element that determines whether she respects you or dismisses you. A woman does not test your strength with physical challenges. She tests it with emotional ones. Not because she wants to destroy you, but because she wants to understand you. She wants to know whether she has met a man or a boy, a fortress or a feather, a leader or a follower. Every sigh, every shift in her tone, every moment of coldness, every burst of emotion. These are not random actions. They are signals, each one asking you the same silent question. Can you hold your ground when I cannot hold mine? Most men fail this test. When a woman raises her voice, they raise theirs higher. When she withdraws affection, they panic and chase. When she expresses frustration, they collapse into apologies. When she challenges them, they become defensive, anxious, or needy. And in those moments, the man unknowingly hands her the throne. He tells her, without saying a single word, that she controls the emotional landscape, and he merely reacts to it. But the man who does not get pulled into chaos, the man who does not get triggered by emotional storms, becomes something far more powerful, the calm in the middle of her hurricane. This is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is presence. It is the masculine energy that stands firm even when her emotions rise and fall like waves against a rock. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must always be above his impulses, for a ruler who acts on emotion rather than strategy becomes the slave of circumstances. The same rule applies to a man in relationships. If her tone alone can provoke your anger, if her silence can make you insecure, if her confusion can destroy your peace, then she does not follow you, she leads you. Emotional control is not loud. It does not demand attention. It reveals itself quietly. It shows itself in your slow breathing when she is overwhelmed, in your steady voice when she is upset, in your composed expression when she is dramatic, in the way you refuse to escalate arguments but also refuse to shrink into weakness. A woman respects this balance deeply because it makes her feel safe, and safety is the gateway to admiration. When she sees that her emotions do not dominate you, she begins to lean on you. She becomes softer, more feminine, more receptive. Because a woman cannot relax into her nature unless the man in front of her is grounded in his. But emotional control does not mean tolerating disrespect. When she crosses a boundary, you do not explode, you do not insult, you do not argue endlessly. You simply withdraw your energy, your attention, your presence. Not out of anger, but out of principle. This is the silent enforcement of respect. This is the discipline that Machiavelli admired in leaders who were feared, not because they acted with rage, but because they acted with certainty. Many men believe that reacting strongly proves dominance. It does not. It proves instability. Emotional outbursts convince a woman that you cannot handle pressure, that you cannot handle her, and most dangerously, that you cannot handle yourself. Women lose respect for men who break emotionally because emotional stability is the foundation of masculine leadership. If you cannot regulate yourself, she will never trust you to guide a partnership, a family, or even a conversation. When a woman becomes emotional, she is not trying to push you away. More often, she is trying to find your edges. She wants to see where your strength begins and where it ends. She wants to know whether she can lean on you without watching you collapse. She wants to know whether you can stand firm without becoming cold, whether you can stay calm without becoming passive, whether you can hold space without needing to dominate it. The man with emotional control responds instead of reacting. He listens instead of defending. He pauses instead of panicking. He speaks with intention rather than impulse. He does not return fire when she is upset. He simply becomes more grounded, more present, more stable. And in that moment, something powerful happens. She stops feeling the need to test him. She stops projecting chaos. She stops pushing his buttons. Because a woman only tests a man until she trusts his strength. When she feels that strength consistently, the testing ends. True emotional control comes from knowing who you are, from understanding that her emotions belong to her, not to you, from detaching your identity from her approval, from refusing to let her storms pull you into their center. The moment you understand this, you stop taking things personally. You stop fearing conflict. You stop being controlled by the highs and lows of the relationship. Instead, you bring stability into it, and stability is the rarest form of power in a world where most people are ruled by their impulses. Emotional control is a silent authority. You do not announce it, you do not explain it, you embody it. And the woman in front of you feels it in your presence, your decisions, your energy, and your calmness. It makes her respect you not because you dominate her, but because you can withstand her. A woman respects the man she cannot emotionally unravel, and she is drawn to the man whose inner world remains unshaken, no matter how intense hers becomes. There is a truth as old as empires, and as sharp as a king's sword. A man who guards his time guards his power. And in the realm of attraction, respect, and masculine influence, nothing destroys a man's value faster than giving his time too easily. Modern men make a fatal mistake. They make women the center of their world before they have even built a world worth inviting someone into. They rearrange their schedules, sacrifice responsibilities, cancel plans, and place their mission on the altar of a woman's presence. And each time they do this, something inside her changes. She does not feel honored. She does not feel chosen. She feels something far less desirable. She feels that the man has no greater purpose than her. Women may enjoy the attention at first, but eventually the same attention suffocates them. It lowers their perception of you. It tells them silently but clearly that your time is abundant, your mission is weak, and your life has no discipline. Machiavelli observed that a ruler must always appear occupied, even if he is not, because a busy man looks important and a free man looks disposable. This principle applies even more intensely in relationships. A man without priorities invites disrespect. A man whose world is shaped by a woman's desires becomes a servant, not a leader. Your time must be protected as if it were gold dust scattered across the floor. Every hour you give away must be chosen, not surrendered. When a woman sees that your days are structured, that your hours are purposeful, that your goals are non-negotiable, she understands instinctively that she is entering the life of a man with direction, and direction is irresistible. Not because it impresses her, but because it reassures her. She knows a man with priorities is a man who will not crumble under pressure. A man who can lead himself can eventually lead a partnership, a family, and a future. When your time is valuable, your attention becomes meaningful. When your time is freely available, your attention becomes worthless. Women do not fall for men who are always free. They fall for men who choose them despite being busy. They fall for the man who pauses his mission for a moment, not the man who abandons it entirely. The first type of man feels powerful. The second feels desperate. Time itself is a filter of value. It sorts the strong from the weak, the focus from the lost, the discipline from the wandering. A man who spends his day trying to please a woman is a man who has forgotten that purpose is the heart of masculinity. A man who invests his time in building himself becomes someone she wants to respect because he respects himself enough to prioritize growth, and most importantly, he creates a life that she wants to be part of, rather than a life where she is the only part. Women admire men who are difficult to access, not because they play games, but because they have lives filled with responsibility and ambition. Your schedule must speak before you do. It must tell her that you train your body, sharpen your mind, develop your craft, expand your skills, handle your obligations, and maintain your independence. A woman cannot respect a man whose only identity is her, and she cannot ignore a man who is passionately chasing something bigger than her. But this boundary must be upheld with calm confidence, not with anger or defensiveness. When she asks for your time, you do not explain yourself nervously. You simply communicate your schedule with certainty. When she wants to see you, you do not cancel commitments. You align plans with your availability. When she tests whether she can pull you away from your responsibilities, you do not bow. You stand firm. Not because you want to create distance, but because you want to preserve respect. A woman will always test your priorities in the beginning. She wants to see how far she can move you. She wants to know whether you are truly committed to your mission or whether your ambition is fragile and easily broken. A man with no schedule is easy to control. A man with purpose is impossible to derail. When she realizes she cannot shake your discipline, she stops trying. She aligns with it instead. She schedules around you. She adapts to your rhythm. She respects your focus because it signals that you are not just a man living day to day, but a man building something. This boundary also protects you from emotional dependence. When your life has structure, you do not obsess over her messages, her tone, her replies, or her moods. You are busy living. You are busy creating. You are busy improving. You do not have time to drown in overthinking because you are too occupied with progress. This is why disciplined men suffer less, attract more, and maintain respect longer than men who float through life with no direction. And here is a powerful truth. When your time is filled with purpose, she feels a natural desire to work for a place within it. Not through manipulation, not through pressure, but through genuine admiration. She wants to be part of your world because it is a world that is moving forward. She wants to be beside a man who is becoming something. A man who values time does not waste it. A man who values himself does not give his hours to anyone who has not earned them. When you live with priorities, you communicate silently that you are a man of worth. You communicate that your life has momentum. You communicate that you are not desperate to be chosen because you have already chosen your mission. And nothing attracts respect, love, and loyalty from a woman more than a man who refuses to sacrifice his purpose for validation, attention, or temporary affection. There is a moment in every man's life when he realizes that respect is not earned through kindness alone. Kindness without strength becomes weakness. Patience without limits becomes permission. And love without consequences becomes self-destruction. If there is one boundary that separates the respected man from the forgotten one, it is the boundary of consequences. Women do not respect men who tolerate everything. They respect men who enforce their standards, quietly, calmly, consistently, without anger, without theatrics, and without apology. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must be both loved and feared, but if he must choose one, he must choose fear, not terror, not brutality, but the deep understanding that actions have consequences. Because people, including women, push limits not out of cruelty, but to understand the true nature of the man standing before them. When she tests you, she is not trying to break you, she is trying to discover you. She wants to see where the line is drawn, how firm it is, and whether you will protect it or abandon it the moment she challenges it. A man who has no consequences is a man who has no boundaries. And a man with no boundaries is a man destined to be disrespected. Consequences begin with the simple act of walking away from disrespect. Not storming away, not yelling, not lecturing, simply withdrawing your presence the moment the environment becomes unhealthy. Not because you are hurt, but because you are disciplined. Not because you lack emotion, but because you have self-respect. Women feel the difference instantly. A man who reacts emotionally looks weak. A man who responds calmly looks powerful. And a man who withdraws without drama sends a message stronger than any confrontation ever could. He will not remain where he is not valued. But consequences are not meant to punish. They are meant to guide behavior. They show what you will accept and what you will never allow again. They show her the truth of your standards without needing to explain them endlessly. Women pay closer attention to the boundaries you enforce than to the words you speak. The moment she realizes that your limits are flexible, that your standards are negotiable, that your principles melt, the moment she cries or becomes cold, she loses respect. But the moment she sees that your standards remain firm even in the face of emotion, attraction, or desire, something inside her shifts. She sees that she is with a man, not a boy. Every man must understand this. Women test your boundaries not because they want to control you, but because they want to feel your strength. A woman cannot relax into her feminine nature unless she feels the masculine strength that protects structure. When she behaves disrespectfully and you ignore it, you weaken the container she wants you to uphold. When she becomes emotionally chaotic and you try to fix it with endless comfort, you reinforce behavior that will only destroy the relationship. But when she crosses a line and you respond with calm withdrawal, you reset the balance effortlessly. Consequences do not always mean leaving permanently. They often mean redirecting the energy in the moment. It means ending a conversation when she becomes insulting. It means refusing to engage when she tries to provoke you. It means stepping back when she tries to manipulate your emotions. It means returning your focus to your purpose when she attempts to derail your peace. The strongest men do not threaten consequences. They demonstrate them. They do not announce boundaries. They enforce them through consistent action.
A woman respects what she cannot shake when she sees that her anger does not unbalance you, that her silence does not intimidate you, that her attitude does not make you chase. She begins to understand the true depth of your worth. She realizes that she cannot control you through emotional volatility, and this realization creates something powerful: admiration. Because deep down, every woman wants a man who cannot be moved by chaos. Not because he is cold, but because he is stable. Not because he is detached, but because he is grounded. This boundary requires courage. A man must be willing to lose her rather than lose himself. He must be willing to choose his self-respect over momentary peace. He must be willing to walk away from disrespect even when his emotions tell him to stay. He must be willing to enforce consequences even when he desires her deeply. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must never be afraid to take decisive action, even when emotions cloud his judgment. In relationships, this means standing by your principles, even when your heart tries to betray you. And here is the truth: few men accept consequences make you more respected, not less loved. Most men think that being firm will push a woman away, but the opposite is true. Weakness pushes her away, desperation pushes her away, inconsistency pushes her away, but strength pulls her in, certainty pulls her in, discipline pulls her in. A woman is drawn to the man who can maintain structure, especially when she herself cannot. She respects the man who can say no. She admires the man who does not tolerate chaos. She feels safe with the man who does not allow emotional storms to dictate the direction of the relationship. When she knows there are consequences, she behaves better, not out of fear, but out of respect. Not because she is controlled, but because she is protected. She knows exactly what the man stands for, what he will tolerate, and what he will remove himself from. This clarity creates harmony. It prevents resentment. It eliminates confusion. And it fosters a dynamic where love grows under the guidance of strong, healthy boundaries. Consequences are the proof of your standards. They are the armor of your self-respect. They are the foundation of true masculine presence. And without them, all other boundaries collapse. A woman cannot trust a man who cannot enforce limits. She cannot follow a man who cannot lead himself. And she cannot respect a man who fears confrontation more than he fears losing his own identity.